Our main objective with these films is to teach people how to survive in the Aussie bush. And not only survive, but thrive. And to thrive, you need to take the fear out of it and hook up with all your mates. So that's what I've done. I've hooked up with my mate Gareth, who's also a really good bushman with a lot of experience. He knows a lot of the native plants, how to propagate them, how to collect them. He's a wealth of knowledge. And I've hooked up with him, and we've been running courses which have been really successful. Everyone's been going, wow, can we take your next course?
Hi, my name's Gareth, and I've been working with Koa on our Survive and Thrive bush survival weekends. And when Koa asked me if I'd be happy to turn this into a documentary, I thought this was a really exciting opportunity. People often ask me, how did you get into plants and working with the bush? But I don't really remember a time when I haven't been working with plants and in the bush. I've never grown up with a us and it sort of mentality at all. And to be able to share my enthusiasm and the knowledge I've gained over the years is really exciting.
Yeah, for the last 5,000 years we've had, all of us have had our roots pulled out of the earth. And all the tribes have been separated and broken apart. And look where it's got us. We're this close to killing all life on the surface of the earth. And we're all scattered and all over the place. So, from my perspective, we won't survive as a species. The human species will not survive unless we come back together as a tribe and walk this earth in harmony with it in the spirit of love.
Look, I think Koa's right there on a multitude of levels. I think when we're out in the bush and we're just barely surviving, we need to remember that people have not only survived but lived out there in the bush for thousands of years, and they've done that without fear, thoroughly thriving and living in community. So what we're trying to do here is first up teach people how to survive and open them up to be able to live in harmony with their surroundings, with that type of joy. That's the first step in coming back to tribe and community, being able to really flourish in our natural environment. So where we're going to start now is teaching you some of the basic plants you're going to find out there for your survival, and then we'll go through a bit of a journey into shelter, water, fire, and many of the other aspects of the Australian bush.
Let's get going. The Aboriginals only used a few of the species, and then they can eat the beans inside the shell. And the mature seed they'd grind into damper, so they'd get it wet on a rock like a mortar and pestle and keep grinding it until it forms into a gluish mass, and then they could form it and throw it into the ashes and cook it as damper. You want to add to that?
Yeah, so I mean these are the black seeds that form, and yeah, very widespread across Australia, the use as a flour. It's really got a nutritious coat on it. Acacias have a really interesting relationship with the ants, that they have these little glands at the base of the leaf which releases a sugary substance, and it keeps the ants coming to the tree all year round until the seed matures. Then it cuts off the sugar production out of those glands, and it produces a sugary coat on the seed pod. But they need to be scarified to germinate, like, you know, scratch back. So the ants scratching off the sugary substance makes the seeds germinate. They'll usually take them down into their nests and bang, off they go. So yeah, there's a lot of nutrition in the seed coat as well. It's a great flour. You know, organic wattle seed's now going for about $120 a kilo or something like that. That's how highly regarded it is. So it's not a bad bush tucker to be stuck with.
How do you get the coat off the seed?
You don't need to. You just crush it up between two rocks and you're away. Keep the seed coat, it's really nutritious. Yeah.
The sap is edible and it's delicious.
Really?
Yeah. The Aboriginals actually used to scar them in the autumn and come back in the spring and find a big glob of it and harvest it. It's a bit like farming, really. And it was incredibly nutritious. I'm always looking out for this sap when I'm going through the bush, because you can always just take that lump off and chuck it in your pocket or in your bag and eat it later.
That's
and
right.
you just suck on it and it just dissolves in your mouth. like a lolly.
Well, most of you would have heard of gum arabic or seen it on the ingredients in commercial chewing gums and things like that, and that's from an African acacia. So another fantastic feature, I think, of the wattles are the galls that form on it. These little round green apples. Now, most people think that that's a sign of an unhealthy wattle tree, whereas in fact it's a vital part of the ecosystem. I've told you about the ants and their relationship with the wattle. Well, the gall takes it a bit further because the wasp, which is inside of that, besides being a rich source of protein, is also the pollinator for the eucalypt trees. If you were to take away the wattles and their gall, you'd be losing all of the eucalypts from the ecosystem as well. And that really shows us how interrelated all of these, the plants and insects and everything are. There's no individuality. It's a total system, and it's really interreliant on each other.
This is a march fly. Aboriginals look forward to the march fly season. They used to eat them, you know, eat the whole thing. So one would land on them, smack it, whack right in the mouth, you know. And the reason is because each march fly has a ball of honey right in there at the base of its abdomen, and they're really sweet. I haven't got around to eating one whole. But what I do is I kill them straight away so they don't suffer. And then you just take their bum and pull out all the guts, chuck them. They don't look that appetizing to me. And then you pinch it. What did happen, man? There it is. See the honey? Now that is so sweet, man. I reckon there's heaps of nutrition in that. Tastes just like honey. Sweet hit. This is one of the most common plants this side of the Great Divide. It's farmer's friend. A lot of you know it because you see that seed pod sticking in all your clothing. But actually what you can do when you come across a big patch of this is you get a t-shirt out, some piece of clothing, and go along and collect all those. And then you put it in a river, get it all soaked up, and then hang it in a tree, and they're sprouting. So you can eat those sprouts. Every plant has a purpose. And one of the things I've been doing in Australia is taking plants that people don't like and showing them that they do have a purpose. And it doesn't do anybody any good to hate them. You know, so you might as well open up to them and let them reveal what it is that they came here to do. So you can eat the flower, which is what I do mostly. One of the biggest sicknesses in the whole developed country world is not getting trace minerals. We don't even let our babies crawl in the dirt and, you know, pick up trace minerals on their fingers. We are, you know, picking them up and whitewashing the whole society, which has caused us to have lots of sicknesses because without the trace minerals, you can't assimilate calcium. You can't assimilate all these other things. So it's crucial to know about plants like this in the bush. When you're walking through, I doubt if there's any place this side of the Great Divide where you're not going to come across that plant. And just eat the flower and keep moving. The young plants as well. See all the little young plants? Now if you wanted to, you know, you're going to pull up and have camp, cook up a pot of soup. Well, it makes a great soup. All the little young plants, you could get a pot of soup quite easily there.
The sprouts, and saying that they're really tasty and they are particularly good for you. I know there's a famous Australian herbalist, Isabel Shippard, who rates them very highly on her list. But of course they get into your clothes, and the best way to get them out of your clothes rather than picking them off or scraping with a knife, sprout them in your clothes. And just soak your clothes, sprout them, and then you get them out of there and you get a snack at the same time.
This is Scots thistle, probably brought here from Europe, probably a couple hundred years ago. It's spread itself all through Australia, especially this side of the Great Divide. It's highly nutritious. It's another plant that actually the Native Americans use too as well. You can make fiber from the stem. They made fishing line and things like that from the stem. The leaves are highly nutritious. They've done lots of studies on it, and I'm not sure exactly what they came up with, but they reckon it's really highly nutritious. It's actually, you know the artichoke that you buy in the shop? You know the one that's a flower and you peel it off and eat it? Well, it's in the same family. That's the artichoke. And you can actually eat that like an artichoke. Very carefully. Ouch! Your buggy bit me. That's funny, because you know one of the things that I've developed over the years with plants is I actually talk to them, and they'll respond by moving their leaves. And I'm just bringing it up because you know just try it when you're in the bush or wherever you're at and you're around plants. Just have a little chat to them. You know, ask them how they are. Say something like, "Oh man, you're so beautiful," and see it? It just went. Yeah.
Spark.
So yeah, if you're in the bush survival situation, you pick the leaves very carefully. And what I've found with plants like this, instead of cooking them up, because you're going to lose a lot of nutrition, I carry a water bottle, and I'll just take a couple of leaves, chop them up, tear them up with my hands, chuck them in my water bottle, and then over a few hours, the water infuses the nutrients out of the leaf, and I just drink it like that. It's called sunshine tea. There's a lot of benefits to that sort of thing because you don't have to light a fire, which means you don't have to go get fuel to get your nutrition. You know, in the times to come, it might be that you don't want to build a fire. You don't want people to know where you are. Or you don't, all your matches are wet, or whatever, you know. Doesn't mean you're going to starve. You don't have to cook your food. In fact, it destroys nutrients to eat it, you know. There are foods that you have to cook because they've got alkaloids in them that are going to hurt you. But that's a different story. Plants like this you can eat raw. So sunshine tea is a really good way to go.
Okay, so here's something a little different. I spied in amongst all of the farmers' friends and yellow flowers. This has the appealing name of thickhead. And it has a really nutritious leaf, and it's an incredibly tasty leaf as well. I use it in salads and things all the time. It's very slightly nutty. And yeah, it's again incredibly good for you. It's just a young fella, but they can produce quite a decent sized leaf, and I'm sure we'll find a bigger one along the way so you can have a try. But very distinctive flower. You can see there's no petals coming off the side of it. It's got that red centre. So that's thickhead. Did you want to add something? I know it's one of your faves, Koa.
Yeah. Well, they did tests on it to see if they could feed the refugee camps in Africa, because they reckon that all the B complex vitamins are in that plant and in the leaf. And they actually were going to move forward with it and make up a meal that they could spread throughout Africa. But Monsanto's came in with soybeans. Wow. So they dropped that project.
Okay, so what I'm going to look at doing here now is building a lean-to shelter. So what we need to do that is simply find a tree with a good fork in it, and this is perfect just here. We need some good sturdy branches to make the basic skeleton of the structure, and we've got plenty of those lying around. We've got the lantana we're going to have to move to make the shelter, and that's actually going to become part of the structure as well. And then we need twine to tie it all together. So I've collected some already. See here, we've got the native grape, which is a fantastic heavy-duty twine, which I'll use for tying up some of the bigger pieces of wood. And then for the finer stuff, got the native snake vine, which has a nice lightweight twiner, and that'll be perfect. The first thing we're going to do is clear the area. This is all pretty dead lantana, so I think it's just going to pull straight out. We can leave all of the leaf litter and stuff there because that's going to add to our insulation, so it's going to help keep us warm at night and our comfort as well. We just don't want these big woody bits. And again, now that I've found that there's cockspur vine right here, take the time just to have a close look and see that there aren't some other small pieces lying about like that, which you could get yourself caught up on in the middle of the night. I've found cockspur. There's small bits here all over the place, so in this instance I am going to scrape back what's here, and then I'm going to transport in some leaf litter. Everything you need is always within a few metres of you, you'll find. So we're going to start with the backbone of our shelter.